So we've had the Japanese Grand Prix, and that was, well, a very interesting race, wasn't it? Up front, we got, as we expected, Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez. Off they went. They were brilliant in that, but they avoided the first lap incident, wasn't it, with the big crash with Alex Albon and Daniel Ricciardo. Thank God both were okay. Looked like a racing incident to me, to be honest with you. Alex Albon trying to go around the outside. Ricciardo got squeezed and had to move. Didn't really see Albon there, and they both touched each other. Thankfully, they didn't go in together into the barriers, did they? They went in separately, which would have avoided, it could have been a lot more serious, that one. Thank God that they are both okay. But yeah, then we got the red flag. The restart again was a good start for both Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, all kept position. Lewis Hamilton lost out. That the Mercedes went for the hards, didn't they? Switching on that second restart, and it didn't really work for Hamilton. He got passed by Charles Leclerc, who coming to Charles Leclerc, he pulled an absolute blinder. But it was actually a really interesting race, wasn't it? Right up behind in that fight for third place. Action all the way through, mixed strategies, even between teams. I mean, Ferrari pulled the blinder with Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz was on a charge. Red Bulls, they just had it off, locked up front, didn't they? Off they went. They were pretty comfortable this race, and it looked like that for 1-2 in qualifying, 1-2 in the race. Yeah, absolutely brilliant from them. But it behind was all action, wasn't it? Lando, Norris and the McLaren, I think they'll be disappointed. Just wasn't their race today, was it? Seemed to be too hard on their tyres. Ferrari were on a charge, weren't they? Charles Leclerc from P8 to P4, I think he was my driver of the day in the end. Just made that one-stop work, didn't he? Where all around him, everybody seemed to struggle on that. Ferrari's made that medium tyre work, especially Charles Leclerc. And he pulled off a fantastic result. Carlos Sainz made moves, didn't he? He got a pass on Norris, made the pass on Charles Leclerc to clinch that podium position, and crucially the extra stint length he did early on paid off dividends for him, didn't he? Because he had the overrun on the tyres was significant, wasn't it? If you had even one lap fresher tyres than the guy ahead of you, you were making big gains, weren't you? It was a really big deficit that we've seen on these tyres, bigger than we've seen in other places as well. Even with the DRS, was it too powerful down that straight? I'm not too sure, but there was some really good moves around the outside into turn one, wasn't it? From a number of drivers, to be honest with you. It was great to see. George Russell, and he was on a charge at the end, isn't he? And were we going to get this, Alonso and Russell battling again at the end of the race? Didn't quite pan out that way, did he? But Russell, a really good move on Oscar Piastri. He'll be disappointed, Piastri, because he made a mistake which helped Russell make that move past him. But Russell is under investigation because of an earlier attempt at a pass for Piastri, and that could really have, could he get a penalty for that? I'm not sure he will, for driving another car off track. Piastri lived to fight another day, cut the chicane, didn't he, and held position, so I'm not sure about they'll get any sort of penalty for that, which might affect Russell's position. I think it would be a bit harsh if that was to happen. But yeah, it was a shame we were robbed of the Alonso Russell battle again, wasn't he? After last time out where Alonso got that penalty, it just wasn't to be. But the Mercedes had a tough race, didn't they? Just not quick enough in race conditions, and normally that's where we've seen them shine last season, isn't it? Last year their one lap pace was not very good. They qualified poorly, but in race conditions they were really good, weren't they? But this time out they've seemed to struggle. They went tried both in terms of the one stop, didn't they? They realised that wasn't going to work. They switched tyres and were aggressive on the end, both on the mediums, Hamilton and Russell. Worked out okay for Russell in the end. He finished P7. And Hamilton, it's just a horrible weekend, isn't it, really? Finished in P9 in the end. I think a brilliant job from Fernando Alonso, though. He finished in P6. I think he did a tremendous job, because really I don't think that car was one to beat a McLaren, and he was definitely not going to beat the Ferraris or the Red Bull. So to beat one McLaren, and it wasn't fast enough to put any pressure on Lando Norris, who was in the end a comfortable 5th place. At one point it looked like Norris might have the the pace to sort of potentially challenge Charles Leclerc, but in the end, his tyres just fell off also. They were very on similar strategy in terms of tyres at that stage. But yeah, it was very interesting to see how the one stop worked for Charles Leclerc. It didn't work at all for the Mercedes, and they had to switch to the two stops. And also with, you know, a lot of overtaking, and we'd normally seen before where we'd get cars follow, but they couldn't do that. But out of the last chicane, we were seeing cars hold up and get into the slipstream and make that pass into turn one. It was a brilliant job from them. Logan Sargent, he had a scruffy race, didn't he? He had that big mistake, went off at Degner 2 and was running about 14th place, wasn't he? But then, yeah, dropped way down, finished last, and it was an awful day for the Alpines, wasn't they? They were absolutely nowhere. Ocon finished 22 seconds behind Bottas, who finished in 14th place. Both of them absolutely nowhere in race pace, and I thought they might do better this weekend if you look at my predictions, and they were just absolutely nowhere, were they? Against Bottas, getting to them, he had a decent race, wasn't he? But again, really slow pit stop, 8-second stop. I mean, they really need to get on top and sort this tyre nut issue out and sort their pit stop strategy out. But the highlight for me was a P10 for Yuki Tsunoda. A fantastic job on his home race to pick up a point. He's done a tremendous job in that Red Bull Racing Bull car, hasn't he? Absolutely great to see him do that. He was under pressure, wasn't he? You could tell he was feeling it, being the hometown boy, to, you know, put on a performance and get some points in front of his home crowd. He's done it. I think he did a really good job today. Held off the Haas of Nico Hülkenberg in the end, who finished 11th, and also Stroll, wasn't he? Because Lance Stroll was absolutely on the charge. He booted on some soft tyres and was flying at one point, but just didn't have enough in him to make the pass or enough laps to close up and make the moves there, did Lance Stroll. But yeah, it was a very interesting race, because in and behind there was a lot of action, and the strategies and how good and bad cars were on tyres was the real key here for this race, wasn't it? That was the big difference between someone doing a really good race and it not going too well. But we seem to have a clear path now, aren't we? Red Bull are the number one car. Ferrari have done a tremendous job, because where they struggled last year in holding on to their tyres, they've sort of done a complete flip on that, and actually now in race trim they're comfortably second, and a fantastic job from them. Carlos Sainz, what can you say? A podium position, third place. He was on a charge, made the moves when he needed to. Yeah, all round a really good, 3 and 4 for Ferrari here this weekend. McLaren, I think they'll be disappointed, especially considering how good Lando Norris qualified in P3. He dropped a couple of places, finished 5th in the end. I think he'd be disappointed, because could they have held on to that 4th place at least in the battle with Charles Leclerc, and they've lost out again on that one, haven't they? Especially with Lando Norris. Mercedes are now like the 4th best team, aren't they? It's not a great weekend for them. A lot of work to do from them. Yuki, a brilliant job, and the Haas and Racing Bulls seem to be in a battle at the moment, don't they, between themselves. And then down there you've got Sauber, who could be doing really well if they'd sort out these, fighting for points potentially with Bottas, if they could sort out their issues with the pit stops. Zhou Guanyu, he had to retire with a gearbox issue, and then Williams seemed to, Alex Albon didn't make it past the first corner, so could he have been in the fight for points today? It was potentially on the card, wasn't it, because there was so much going on, and how they would have handled the tyres in this race, who knows? And there was potential there for Alex Albon. Didn't make it past the first corner. Sargent made a big mistake. It's been a horrible weekend from him, hasn't it? He didn't get to race last time out. Big mistake and a big crash in FP1 just added pressure onto him. It was a decent quali, but then not a good race at all, was he? That big mistake, lost loads of time, didn't he, getting out of the gravel, and then he finished last. He was beaten by the Alpines as well, who were absolutely shocking up there in no man's land, aren't they? Way down, and who'd have thought that? It's all gone wrong at Alpine. Another weekend to forget for them. Effectively, they should have really been last. Sargent should have beat them, to be honest with you. And Daniel Ricciardo, another horrible weekend. I mean, didn't make it past lap 1, so you can't really say how he would have got on. But yeah, he was one place behind Yuki, so it might have been nice to see them two battle it out for some, point in the end. He would have been right in the mix, I'm sure, but we'd never get to find out. So yeah, it was a lot of action. A really good Japanese Grand Prix, especially in and behind the two Red Bulls. The racing was much better this weekend compared to what we've seen in other Grand Prix, hasn't it, where we've not really got the close racing. It was back, wasn't it? It was anyone's game at certain points, but the Ferrari proved strong, and they nicked that final podium position. But there we have it. That's a review of the Japanese Grand Prix. Watch out for the driver rating video to come out, and then we're heading off next time. I think it's Miami next, isn't it? Round 5. Really looking forward to that. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment as always. See you next time.